Hello, fellow cyborgs, and welcome to the Classics book tag, which is quite old and classic itself on BookTube, but I've never done it because I've never been tagged and it just never felt like the right time. But today is that right time. This was created over at It's a Books World blog, so I will link that blog post down below. Question number 1 is an overhyped classic you really didn't like, and most of you would know that I gut feeling would say Wuthering Heights, but I've talked about that enough that another classic I think is quite overhyped for me is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I really appreciate the symbolism in this text, but I don't like the unlikable characters. I think the narrator's just a little bit like voyeuristic, and I just don't love the idea of the boozy dream that is the 1920s jazz age. It's just not my favorite atmosphere, so for me, The Great Gatsby holds very little for me to enjoy about it. Question number 2, your favorite time period to read about? And for me, that would be the Victorian era, which normally happens in London, but if I could get Victorian era not in London, that would be great. And or something around World War I or World War II. Those two time periods I am really intrigued with as far as like culture and fashion. And I'm also a sucker for a war story because when you're faced with the horrors of war, things suddenly make a lot more sense, and I think some big questions become a lot simpler. Question number 3 is your favorite fairy tale, and of course that is The Beauty and the Beast. It's just my absolute favorite. I grew up thinking that I was Beauty and I could see through someone's furriness to the heart within, and as I've grown older and grumpier, I realize I am actually the Beast, hoping that someone can see through my grumpiness to the heart that I have inside of my chest. Question number 4, what is the classic you are most embarrassed not to have read yet? I'm most embarrassed not to have finished Moby Dick by now. I am on page 473 of 587. I have 110 pages to go, and I just can't bring myself to pick it up right now. And with Victober coming up in October, I think this is going to be a November read, but I need to get to it by the end of the year. It's one of my 2016 goals. I wanted to read 5 books, and this was one of them, so I am definitely embarrassed not to have finished this since I am so close. I'm almost there, but I just haven't had the willpower yet. Question number 5 is the top 5 classics you'd like to get to soon. The Waves by Virginia? The Waves by Virginia Woolf, because of Victoria from A Hermit's Progress. She was reading this for the Slowathon and hasn't even finished it yet because she's loving it so much. And I, earlier in the year, read To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf and really got on with it well, so I want to get to this by the end of the year. And it's short, so hopefully that'll be doable. I would like to get to The Odd Women by George Gissing because I've had this for ages, probably since I took a Victorian literature class in university in 2011, and I've just not read this, and it's about spinsters, and I'm slowly becoming a member of the Spinster Corps, the secret society of ladies who love cats and just can't find a person or just don't want to. So yeah, spinsters, Victorian, I would really like to get to this soon. This I'm counting as a classic, which is The Bondwoman's Narrative by Hannah Crafts, edited by Henry Louis Gates Jr. This is the first manuscript written by a Black woman, and if that's not a classic, I don't really know what is. Then I'd like to read Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. This is my aunt's copy from like the 80s or something, which she bequeathed to me, horrified that I had not read it already. So I would really like to get this soon. And also I've been really feeling like reading a longer story. So the length of this really appeals to me at the moment. So we'll see when I get to it. And finally, this is a bind up of 3 of Jane Austen's novels. Within it is Mansfield Park. This is the next Jane Austen I would like to read because I think I'm really going to love Persuasion and I want to save Sense and Sensibility for the end. So Mansfield Park I want to read next to kind of get it over with and hopefully to exceed my low expectations because no one, unless they're just being contrary, seems to love Mansfield Park. Question number 6, favorite modern book or series that's based on a classic. For me, that would be Heart's Blood by Juliette Marillier. This is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast with ghosts set in ancient Ireland, and this is the only Marillier that I have finished reading, and I really enjoyed it, and and I think it's a very unique perspective on the Beauty and the Beast tale. Question number 7 is favorite movie or TV series based on a classic. That would be Hook, which is based off of or takes inspiration from Peter Pan. It also has lovely Robin Williams, Dustin Hoffman in it. It's a movie from my childhood that I absolutely adore, and it's definitely my favorite adaptation. Question number 8, what is the worst classic adaptation you've seen? And for me, that would be I think it's 1997 version of Jane Eyre with Samantha Morton and Kieran Hines. I started watching this, but Samantha Morton was just so creepy, stalkery Jane, and Kieran Hines was just really not attractive or appealing of a person at all. He was really abrupt and all up in Jane's business, and I actually didn't finish watching it because they were not my characters. They were not Jane and Rochester for me, so that's what I'm going to say for now is the worst adaptation of a classic I've seen. Question number 9 is the favorite editions of classics that you would like to collect more. I have 2, the first being Persephone. This is Consider the Years by Virginia Graham, which is a World War II poetry collection. So as you know, with Persephone, they have plain gray covers, but then their end flaps are where they shine, and it's like a secret little, this is what I really am, don't judge me by my cover. And my other recent love are the Rhodes Classics. This is Walden by Henry David Thoreau. Nailed it. I always call him Henley, but not in this video. So these are always a blank sort of white cover with a soft colored border and then a circular design on the front cover. And then there are also little details on the spines or else on the back that pertain to the individual works. And they, like Persephone, which I didn't mention, they're paperbacks, but these ones have French flaps. Persephone technically has a cardboard dust jacket over their paperbacks. I recently realized that Rhodes also has a children's classics line where instead of it being white, it's a different color. So that's how you denote whether it's an adult classic or children's classic. Fun stuff. I have a couple of these on my wish list, and I always have Persephone's on my wish list as well. Question number 10, an underhyped classic you would recommend to everyone. So of course, you can't really recommend something to everyone, but an underhyped classic that I never hear anyone talk about is The Man Who Was Thursday by G.K. Chesterton. This was written in 1908, I believe, and I've written down in my notes over here on my computer the blurb on Goodreads because it's so hard to explain, but I think this blurb nails it. A metaphysical thriller and a detective story filled with the poetry and politics. Gabriel Syme is a poet and police detective. Lucian Gregory is a poet and a bomb-throwing anarchist. Syme infiltrates a secret meeting of anarchists and becomes Thursday, one of the 7 members of the Central Anarchist Council. He soon learns, however, that he is not the only one in disguise, and the nightmare begins. This is just so weird and awesome and quirky, and it just is so strange, but I love it so much. And I actually don't have a copy because I had this trade paperback that just wasn't very nice and I gave it away eons ago. I have an edition on my Kindle though. And because of this, I want to read Man Alive by G.K. Chesterton at the very least, if not his other works as well. He's a really interesting man. He has a very varied bibliography, ranges from all sorts of things. But if you haven't tried The Man Who Was Thursday or haven't even read of it, heard of it, I suggest you just look into it because it's one of my favorite classics and I, wish more people knew about it. So those were the classic books that I wanted to talk with you about today, and I hope that you really enjoyed having this flashback to this tag that I just hadn't gotten to. But it just goes to show you that you don't necessarily have to do the tags that are going around right now. You can go back to some of the old goodies. Thank you for watching, and until next time, continue to be lovely. You are a musty spine. And thank you to my patrons who continue to support me financially through Patreon. It's really awesome. I really appreciate it. I hope that you are still enjoying the channel and the content and hopefully loving some classics this week as well.